A tomb in Israel contains a stunning story that has endured for thousands of years. This is the fascinating, perhaps unbelievable, history of the final resting place of Jesus' midwife. The narrative of the nativity of Jesus only appears in the Gospel of Luke, which simply says that Jesus was born, wrapped in cloth, and laid in a manger. The only people mentioned who are present besides Mary and Joseph are the shepherds and angels. That certainly does not include any midwife to aid in the delivery. Before the Protestant Reformation asserted that the only writings bearing divine authority are the books of Scripture, many Christians' understanding of major biblical figures came from traditions beyond the Bible. One of the most influential of the sources is a book called The Infancy Gospel of James. It offers an expanded account of the birth and childhood of Mary, as well as a nativity, including a scene where Joseph goes looking for a midwife and time stands still. He returns to the cave where he left Mary, only to see the area become filled with a blinding light and the baby Jesus teleport from Mary's womb and into her arms. No midwife needed. You might think that the midwife that Joseph found is the one whose tomb was found, but there's a bit more to this story.
Who is Salome?
The Infancy Gospel of James also notes that the unnamed midwife that Joseph fetched is amazed at the miracle. She then goes to tell another midwife named Salome all about this incredible teleporting baby, but Salome refuses to believe that her friend has seen a virgin birth until she can examine Mary's undercarriage for herself. When she reaches under Mary's dress, her hand burns and withers as punishment for her lack of faith. Salome then prays to God for forgiveness. God then sends an angel who tells her to touch the baby Jesus in his manger crib, and she will be healed. The gospel continues, but this is essentially the end of Salome's story. These two midwives are commonly depicted in art bathing or otherwise tending to the infant Jesus. Although some other texts and traditions apply various names to the first midwife, Salome is the one who has a consistent name throughout the tradition. Weirdly enough, though, there's actually not that much difference between being named Salome and having no name at all. As it turns out, Salome was an incredibly popular moniker among Jewish women in the 1st century CE. It's derived from the well-known Hebrew word shalom, meaning peace. There were a number of notable Jewish women from this time period with the name Salome, and even the midwife isn't the only one tied to the life of Jesus. Perhaps the most famous Salome is the daughter of Herodias, who demanded John the Baptist's head on a platter, although she never actually is named in the Bible. But the Gospels do talk about a Salome who was at the crucifixion and one who was at the empty tomb, as well as one who was the mother of the apostles James and John, who might have been Mary's sister. It's unclear how many of these Salomes are distinct people, as various traditions combine them in different ways. Some churches even teach that Salome the midwife is the same as the one from the empty tomb, thereby making her one of the first to witness both Jesus' birth and resurrection. The actual physical tomb that's traditionally been identified as that of Salome can be found in a cave near Tel Lachish National Park, about 30 miles southwest of Jerusalem. It's near the ancient city of Lachish, which appears several times throughout the Hebrew Bible. The tomb of Salome is part of a larger burial complex. Within the cave, there are various burial niches carved out of the rock walls, as well as numerous ossuaries, which are essentially receptacles or vaults full of loose bones in various states of disrepair. It's likely that it was in one of these ossuaries that medieval Christians found the name Salome written and thus identify the cave as the burial place of Jesus' midwife. The site then became a place of pilgrimage for Christians starting around the 5th century CE.
Even today, Christian pilgrims still visit this cave.
Before becoming a destination for traveling Christians, the tomb of Salome was almost certainly originally just a burial complex for a wealthy Jewish family from the late Second Temple period. That means that it was probably roughly contemporary with the life of Jesus. Evidence for this includes the style of the burial itself, which reflects the Jewish customs of the time. Furthermore, in addition to the numerous niches and ossuaries, there's a forecourt spanning nearly 4,000 square feet covered with mosaic flooring. Additionally, the entrance to the cave was lavishly decorated with various carvings that would have been symbolically significant to Jewish mourners. Pomegranates, rosettes, and vases decorated with acanthus leaves. All of these are fairly typical of Jewish design at the time. One important signifier of the wealth of the family is the fact that similar tombs of the time would have had their forecourts simply carved out of the rock and not filled with elaborate masonry and tiling as the Salome cave does. While the figure of Salome the midwife is not very familiar to modern Christians, she was well known to early followers who weren't as concerned with modern ideas like whether or not the Infancy Gospel of James was biblical canon. Typical depictions of Salome and the other midwife in Orthodox versions of the Nativity indicate that the women were well regarded in the Eastern Church. One clear sign of Salome's popularity is the use of her alleged tomb as a pilgrimage site for Christians in the early Middle Ages. Archaeological evidence suggests that the pilgrimage site was a fairly popular one into the early Muslim period, continuing as a shrine until at least the 9th century. Recent excavations have uncovered clay oil lamps that date to the 8th and 9th centuries. They would have been used by pilgrims either to light their way in the dark burial niches or as part of their veneration of the shrine, similar to the lighting of candles at someone's grave. Archaeologists have even uncovered a row of shop stalls surrounding the complex's forecourt where merchants would have rented or sold these lamps to pilgrims for this purpose. The idea that the veneration of Salome at her tomb continued into the Muslim era is supported by the fact that the cave's interior walls were covered in inscriptions and engravings by visitors across the centuries. Some of these dozens of carvings are written in Greek and clearly from Christian pilgrims, while others are written in Syriac and Arabic. But after the 9th century, there is very little known about what happened to the cave. Presumably, it fell into disuse as a shrine, as the Crusades would have made pilgrimages more difficult. The tomb was essentially forgotten until 1982, when looters searching for antiquities broke into the tomb-turned-shrine. These grave robbers drew the attention of legitimate archaeologists, including Professor Amos Kloner of Israel's Antiquities Department, who began a series of excavations that have continued to this day.
We knew about the cave at least for 40 years. Everything was buried down.
Kloner's excavation revealed the burial niches and ossuaries, but the thing that surprised him was the presence of Christian crosses in a Jewish tomb, as well as the architectural conversion of the place into a chapel or shrine. Though the ossuary that probably inspired the veneration of the site was gone, the inscriptions on the walls indicated that this was likely the shrine of the midwife Salome. In more recent years, archaeologists have begun to uncover the spacious forecourt to the burial complex. These excavations by the Israel Antiquities Authority are part of a plan to open up the site to the public, as part of a larger project emphasizing Jewish cultural heritage throughout the Judean lowlands. The entrance courtyard encompasses about 350 square meters, or roughly 3,767 square feet. This is the area that's tiled with mosaic flooring and surrounded by walls made from ashlar stone masonry. This style of masonry is made from finely hewn stone formed into smooth and irregularly shaped rectangular bricks that fit together tightly. These unusually nice elements contribute to the idea that this cave was originally the resting place for a particularly wealthy family, as well as a popular chapel and shrine. This is the area that also includes much of the intricate carving and design work and the numerous impromptu engravings made by pilgrims and other visitors that helped identify the site as Salomes. In addition to the courtyard's mosaic flooring and elaborate walls, the entrance to the cave also features tall arches and the market stalls where the dozens of clay lamps were found. These lamps are elaborately ornamented with common artistic motifs such as pomegranates and more geometric elements. Perhaps even more interesting is the abundant graffiti found throughout the cave. In addition to the numerous crosses that help identify the cave as a Christian site, numerous pilgrims carved their own names into the wall. But most critically, the name Salome and the word midwife appear over and over. Perhaps the most notable inscription reads, Zechariah ben Kerelis, dedicated to the Holy Salome. The archaeologists of the Israel Antiquities Authority have suggested that Zechariah ben Kerelis was a Jewish patron of the site and may have used his own personal wealth in the development of the shrine and courtyard. More surprising discoveries include modern-day candles, icons, and other elements of worship, which indicate that the shrine is still being visited by pilgrims, even if it's technically illegal until the site is open to the public.
The Israel Antiquities Authority hopes to complete the excavations in coming months and open it up to the public soon.
As of 2023, the site of the Salome Cave is still being excavated and remains closed to public exploration. But a major reason for this new dig is to prepare the site to become a place where general audiences can come and enjoy it. The restoration is part of a larger project by the Israel Antiquities Authority, the Ministry for Jerusalem and Heritage, and the Jewish National Fund called the Judean King's Trail Project. This 60-mile trail crosses through the Judean lowlands and covers numerous sites that were significant in the times of the Bible, the Second Temple period, or the development of the Talmud. The Israel Antiquities Authority is certain that there will be an interest in the Salome Cave as a sacred Christian site. Their current efforts include seeking out ways to protect the numerous inscriptions carved into the walls while making them accessible to tourists. They likewise hope that once the site is officially open, modern-day pilgrims will no longer feel it necessary to break in, and everyone who wants to will be able to visit safely. While the Salome Cave was an important shrine for pilgrims in the Byzantine era, you might well wonder how important it will be to people nowadays. After all, the question remains, how authentic is the claim that this is indeed the burial place of a woman who once bathed the infant Jesus? If you don't put any stock in early extra-canonical gospels, then chances are probably also pretty low that you believe in the authenticity of this cave. Furthermore, the fact that the main connection to Salome the midwife in the first place is that there was probably at one point a box full of bones with her very common name on it might also add to the skepticism. And if you're skeptical, you're not alone. Most Protestants don't give much credence to traditions from outside the Protestant canon. And even many Catholics, who are generally more open to tradition as a source of teaching, are also hesitant to fully buy into the narrative from the infancy Gospel of James, or even the idea that Jesus had a midwife at all. No less an authority than St. Jerome himself once said, "No midwife assisted at his birth, no woman's officiousness intervened." But clearly, whatever the truth may be, Israeli tourism officials are hoping that enough people believe in Salome and are interested enough in visiting her shrine.
Perhaps late recognition for a forgotten female figure of the story of Jesus.